we have found peace and tranquility during the COVID-19 pandemic by escaping the crisis and tuning into movies and TV shows, binge watching here at home. But the good thing is movie theaters are back open, but it's a different experience. Joining us now on the MegaCast is going to be Nate Adams. He is the only critic.com, one of our favorite film critics here on the show. It's great to have you with us, Nate. How are you this morning?
I'm good, Ronnie. Thanks for having me. And I also want to give a shout out to the first responders that you had on earlier. It's just like they're doing a great things during this tough time.
They definitely are. With that though, Nate, how many movies and TV shows have you watched over the past year?
So in 2020, I saw 264 new 2020 releases. So those were movies that specifically came out in 2020. Overall, because I watched a bunch of old films, and I actually got my thing today. I logged 768 hours last year, how many movies I watched. So I don't know how many days that is. Probably you have to divide that by 24, but that's how many hours I spent watching movies last year.
That sounds insane.
Yeah, and my most watched actor, I have an app, it's called Letterboxd, and I recommend everybody that's a movie junkie get this app, and you can log everything you watch. My most watched actor last year was Tom Hanks, and my most films was Stanley Kubrick was the most films by a director I watched last year.
How did you get into this?
It actually started as a hobby. We had a school newspaper when I was in 8th grade. And of course, me being a movie aficionado, I loved movies back then. I always went to the movies. We had a local theater. My mom took me. My parents took me every time when I was growing up. And so I had like a little column that each and every week I would write. And then eventually when I went to high school, I started my own blog. And it's funny, they're still out there somewhere, like my old entries, and I just like cringe. It's like you look and it's like, oh, what was I doing? And then eventually I submitted I worked for the editor. I was the editor for my college newspaper. I was the entertainment editor. I was doing that. And then I got into my website kind of took off, and then I was picked up there. And then I started writing for my local paper right now, which is the Clinton Local in Clinton, Michigan. I have a column there every week. As well as various online stuff. So yeah, it's been fun. It's been a fun ride.
You are the example when they say, find a job that you can do what you love, and for you, you turn that hobby into a profession.
Yeah, I'm very lucky, and there's it's nice that I get to do this, and I'm very grateful. I mean, it's funny that my complaining, like people, their day jobs and what they complain about, and I hear that, and it's like, oh well, I have to decide how many movies I can fit in today. I was actually working on a review this morning right before I hopped on a movie that's actually coming to theaters this weekend. It's like it's only coming to theaters, so that's somewhat. That's new. That doesn't happen very much these days in the age of streaming and COVID. So, yeah, it's fun. No complaints from me.
So with that, have you had the opportunity to go back to the movie theater since they reopened here in Michigan?
I have not, except to get popcorn. I've gone a couple times, and because it's takeout only, you can't actually purchase popcorn when you go in the theaters. But as critics, we're very fortunate because the studios let us watch the films at home, so they send them to us, and I watch them at home. So I don't. Very seldomly do I need to go back into a theater. I think the last time I was in a theater was in October, and that was for a film that, for whatever reason, the studio was only releasing in theaters, and I felt like I needed to see it and let people know if it was worth it or not. But yeah, just to get snacks and stuff like that. So hopefully soon, if everything starts looking up, we can get back every week.
Yeah, you do need. I don't care if you make popcorn at home; it never tastes as good as it does when you get it from the theater.
No. It's worth it too. Like, cause I know a lot of people, they go to their local, I think Wesco is the big one. Wesco has Wesco popcorn, and it's like, but yeah, I don't mind going in and paying a little bit extra for their popcorn because A, I'm helping my local theater, and B, like you said, it's uncomparable. And MJR, they give you this little thing of butter. It's like a little butter tube that you take home, and I've been using it when I haven't had their popcorn. I have my microwave popcorn, and I've been able to use it, so that's kind of nice. Just support them. Yeah.
Well, that's an interesting and a great way to be able to support our local theaters and to keep them back in business, because 2021, while there is a vaccine, it's still going to be a while before people are
Slow rollout.
coming back,
Right.
right?
Right. Yeah. And right now we're getting to the point. I was looking at every year I make like my most anticipated films of the year, and I was making my list this year, and it was like, oh, it's Top Gun Maverick. Oh, it's Dune. These are movies that were already supposed to come out last year. And so now we are getting to a point, the studios are going to have to start making decisions again, because come the end of January, big marketing happens, like for your Fast and Furious movies, your Jurassic Parks, all those films, their marketing has to start like months in advance. Same for the James Bond film No Time to Die, which right now is slated for April 9th. I'm very not, I don't think that's going to happen. So you're going to start seeing at the end of January, these studios have to start making decisions again about pushing these films back. And you're already seeing it. The streamers are cannibalizing on content. Warner Brothers decided that, and a lot of people balked at Warner Brothers last month or in December when they said that we're going to release all of our films simultaneously on HBO Max and in theaters. I know at the time people were like, well, this is going to hinder the theatrical experience, but they just didn't want to keep pushing films back. They saw the writing on the wall, and also they have a upstart subscription service that they want to grow. So I get that. And I'm sure Wonder Woman 1984 was a massive hit for their platform. And it actually did okay in its opening weekend at the box office, which opened on Christmas Day, made $16 million over 3 days, which is the best for a pandemic. That's a pandemic best. In normal times, that would obviously be horrible. So, you're going to start seeing, I think, either they're going to have to make decisions. Either they're going to go to streaming, or they're just going to keep pushing. The main decision why Wonder Woman 1984, they didn't want to keep pushing it, is because the film was made, I think it was like the end of 2017, beginning of 2018. It was going to get stale. It just keeps, if you keep a movie sitting on the shelf after so long, it loses its luster.
I will say, if we're going to talk about movies, Wonder Woman, I watched it on HBO Max. I fell asleep.
Yeah,
It wasn't
very
that good.
Wasn't good. And there's another thing too, is I wonder if the discourse, because there was a lot of discourse online, is it because people had the access to pause the film, they could go do things, I got to do the dishes, I got to go make this dinner real quick, I'm going to pause it, come back. Whereas in a theater, you're committed to the experience. You're sitting down. You don't have your distractions. You're not on your phones. You're not talking to people. You're committed to watch the movie 110%. Whereas where Wonder Woman debuted simultaneously, people had their phones. They could tweet about it. They could live tweet about it. So I really, that's a good question as to whether or not, if this was a theatrical only film in normal times, had the buzz and had the reviews been better, because people, like I said, they had the option to watch it at home and pause, and just really a lot of opportunities to take themselves out of the movie. Whereas in the movie theater, you're locked in.
What were your thoughts on the movie?
I didn't like it, and I thought it was a mess, just because I loved the first Wonder Woman so much, and I wonder if my expectations were just too high. But I thought it was a bit chaotic. The plotting was all over the place. Its tone, it was just. I'm all about silly and Saturday morning stylish cartoon superhero films, because that's what they are. They're a cartoon. But yeah, it didn't work for me. But if it works for others, that's fine too. I always am grateful if people like a movie that I didn't like, because I never want somebody to feel like they're wasting their time.
Right. Yeah, I will say I was glad that I watched it at home through HBO Max instead of paying the money to go to the theater, because I would have been disappointed. What are going to be the other big movies coming out?
So at the end of January, we got The Little Things, which stars Denzel Washington, Rami Malek, and Jared Leto. That's a big one. One coming out January 29th, which will be in theaters and HBO Max. Then February 12th, it's Judas and the Black Messiah, which is obviously about one of the Black Panthers, Fred Hampton, playing Daniel Kaluuya and Lakeith Stanfield. That's a big buzzy awards contender. You got The United States of Billie Holiday, which is a Lee Daniels film, which is coming on Hulu. Netflix just picked up Amy Adams' thriller, The Woman in the Window, which was originally set up at 20th Century Studios, and they picked that up. So that's coming down the pipeline. And then Disney is going to release Raya and the Last Dragon, which is a Disney animation film. They're releasing that simultaneously in theaters and on Disney Plus with a premiere access. So you're going to have to pay a $30 fee to watch it opening weekend, but it will also be simultaneously in theaters for those that want to go to the movies. So those are the big ones on the horizon.
I will say, when we're talking about Disney, so if you're paying the monthly fee to even be able to, get their subscription, but then they tack on that additional fee. I'm surprised people are willing to do that, but do you think that's going to be kind of the new platform, or one of the ones that will stick around 2021 and beyond?
Yeah, it's really interesting the models that we are seeing develop. Like we've already seen Universal struck this monumental deal with the theater chains that they can release their films 17 days after they're released in theaters on demand. So it just depends, because now the rumors, because Black Widow is slated to come out in the beginning of May, which is a Marvel film. And see, Marvel, their schedule is so meticulous because all their films are interconnected, and one film leads into another, where if you keep pushing it, one can't come before the other. So if you push one, it's a domino effect and all of them have to move. So if we're coming to May and Black Widow, it's going to be tough to see Disney moving that again. They pushed it a year. So what's to say Disney's not going to charge $50 to watch it on Disney Plus? And I think people will pay it because it's a Marvel film. I don't know if that's going to happen, but I do think some of these models are going to be able to stay. Maybe not day and date, because Raya and the Last Dragon is going to be streamed on Disney Plus and in theaters simultaneously. Not to say that maybe in 3 weeks, like 3 weeks after it's released, it's available on Disney Plus for that fee. But I think in some form or another, that structure will stay. Yes.
Nate Adams with us here on the MegaCast. He is the only critic.com, a film critic here in the state of Michigan. With that, though, Nate, I wonder too, because so much about these movies used to be centered around the publicity and the rollouts, red carpet events. It seems like it's going to be forever before they return.
Right now they do virtual screenings. So I mentioned that the Denzel Washington film, they're doing a virtual premiere this Friday where they'll have the Q&A with the actors afterwards that you can submit questions to. So that a lot of the award season landscape has changed too. It's just virtual. Everything is virtual. I'm getting ready to cover Sundance. I'm covering the Sundance Film Festival at the end of the month, which starts January 29th, and that's going to be all virtual. And they've actually laid out a really, really easy platform to make it accessible. And you almost wonder if something like that is going to stay permanently, because why not have the more wide range and accessibility for people that necessarily can't travel to Park City to review the films? Obviously, there's piracy concerns and things can leak, and I understand that. So that is what we are already seeing. So like I said, I don't know if that changes for the better or not. Like I said, everything is virtual this year.
Do you like it better, virtual? I mean, it's definitely easier.
Yeah, it definitely makes my job a lot easier. I love the convenience of it because I think and of course I want to see the big films. I wasn't necessarily thrilled that I had to watch Wonder Woman 1984 at home, because you watch it and you can see the big spectacle and it's like, wow, this does deserve a big screen. Like my 65-inch flat screen, I mean, yeah, it's big, but it doesn't do anything. It doesn't replicate that feel. But I do like that I don't have to really go searching for a lot of the content. A lot of it kind of shows up to me, and a lot of the publicists that work in the film industry. We work with a lot of stuff at Allied Global Marketing, which is based in Detroit, and those folks are so helpful, and I'm so grateful for them. They make all of our jobs easier, and they don't get enough credit for what they do, and they make it happen. So yeah, it is very much easier, but I do miss going to the movie theaters, and when that time comes that we can go back, I will be first in line.
Yeah, and plus, when you do these press junkets, I've been on a few of them for the movies, they make it fairly easy. Like you literally, it's like, okay, here's your 10 minutes. You walk in, they have the camera set up for you. Like it's usually a 2-camera shoot. And then you walk out, you get your stuff and you move on. So they do make it pretty easy for you in that face-to-face time. But also those moments with the actors and the big stars, they're fleeting because you are so time limited. So maybe doing them virtual gives you a little bit more time for interaction with some of the big stars.
Yeah, and I've had a few interviews on my podcast. I've interviewed a couple filmmakers and actors and chatted with them. And it just seems it's a little more flexible because you're not in a waiting room waiting for other journalists to come in and get their 5 minutes. So that's been very nice and convenient. It's easy. It's easier for me to get a story out of it too when I'm talking to certain individuals. So that has been really, really nice. And they're still making it easy virtually. You get the Zoom link, you sign in, they bring the talent in, you talk, however long, and sometimes it goes over and sometimes it doesn't, and it's chill either way. So that's been very nice.
So for here in the state of Michigan, the movie theaters just reopening. We know what's going on here, and our state regarding the theaters and the industry. What about across the country and across the world? Will the theater industry survive, or is it going to be changed forever because now we're so used to being able to get some of these big movies at home?
Well, I think the international box office has been lucrative this year because, like especially like in Asia, in China. So Tenet, which was one of the only blockbusters that dared to open in the pandemic, which was back in September when I think like 60% of the theaters in the United States were open. And LA and Los Angeles and New York theaters are still not open, which is a main reason why if those locations were open, albeit at a minimum capacity, I think some movies would actually be opening because those are big markets and they could maybe make some decent chunky change. But internationally, like Tenet made $350 million worldwide this year, which is actually pretty good. It only made $60 million in the United States, which tells you that overseas the box office has substantially improved. And actually like Mulan and other things like Soul came on Disney Plus in Christmas and Wonder Woman 1984, obviously, but overseas they're opening in theaters. They're opening in movie theaters because they're open and they're functional and they're doing okay. The Croods: A New Age, I think, has made almost $200 million worldwide. So I think it shows that people want to go to the movies, and when the time comes, we will go back to the movies. Certain movies will still always be for streaming, and Disney Plus is going to have, I think there's going to be 9 Star Wars shows. And this Friday they have WandaVision, which is a Marvel Cinematic Universe show. And then what Falcon and the Winter Soldier. So big things, like big scale things that you would normally see in a movie theater are still going to be available on streaming. But like the big movies, like the Fast and Furious 9s, the Jurassic Parks, Top Gun Maverick, Dune, Matrix 4, those are going to be you're going to want to see those in a movie theater. I don't know about the smaller scale stuff, like your Crazy Rich Asians, things like that. Like long gone are the days when in 2002 My Big Fat Greek Wedding could make $150 million at the box office. Meet the Parents, the Ben Stiller Robert De Niro comedy in 2000 made almost $200 million domestically. Those days are gone. That's not going to happen anymore. Those will be on streaming. You'll get an outlier every now and then. Maybe you'll get a Ted, which is an R-rated comedy, made $200 million, but it's very rare, very rare.
Well, we so appreciate your time. You're listening to 89.3 WBLD Orchard Lake, 88.1 WBFH Bloomfield Hills. Nate Adams, he's the film critic. Nate, before we let you go, where can people find more of your work?
Yep, so I am on Rotten Tomatoes under Nate Adams. You can search me up there. I also have a podcast, the Picks and Pans podcast, which is on Google, Spotify, Anchor, wherever you listen to podcasts. This week we watched Little Nicky, which was from 2000, Adam Sandler comedy. It's on Netflix. I don't know why we decided to revisit it, but we did. We have a panel of guests, so that was a fun time. I highly suggest everyone listen to that. And then obviously you can check me out at theonlycritic.com.
Well, Nate, always great having you on. We appreciate your time.
Thanks for having me, Ronnie. It was a lot of fun.